Hello everyone, welcome to our channel Electrical Engineering. In this video, we will deal with 30 question and answers which are been repeatedly asked in your BEE Viva exam. So even if you have not prepared the subject yet, don't worry. All you have to do is prepare these 30 questions thoroughly and you will do well in your Viva exams. So let us start our video. So our first question is differentiate between Kirchhoff's first law and Kirchhoff's second law. Now this question is surely going to be asked in your Viva exams. Now what is Kirchhoff's first law? It states that the total current leaving a point on an electrical circuit is equal to total current entering. Now what does it mean? Consider a circuit. If a current I1 is entering this point and I2 and I3 are leaving this point, then according to this theorem, you can simply write the equation as I1 equals I2 plus I3, which means that the total current I1 entering at this point is equal to the sum of total current leaving through this point. So hope that you are clear with this first law. Now let us see the Kirchhoff's second law, which states that the sum of voltages around any circuit is equal to 0. Now what does this mean? Consider a circuit. This is a 5 volt source and a resistance in series with it of 1 ohm. Now the current flowing through this circuit will be 5 by 1, which is nothing but 5 ampere. Now applying KVL in this loop, I can write as, see, the voltage across the 1 ohm resistor will be plus minus 5 volt. And why plus here? Because resistor is an absorbing or passive element, so it only absorbs the power, does not deliver. So writing the KVL equation for this circuit, it will be phi minus phi equals 0. So this is what the theorem states, that the sum of voltage around any circuit is equal to 0. So whenever the examiner asks these questions, answering them the statement of these theorems is okay, but it would be great if you explain the necessary circuit and the equations to prove it. Now let us move on towards our next question. Our second question is how to calculate the energy stored in an capacitor. So the energy stored is equal to half CV square joules, where C is capacitance is in farad and V is in volts. So for example, if this is capacitance of 2 farad and voltage across it is 4 volt, then the energy stored by this capacitor can be given as E equals half into CV square, where value of C will be 2 farad and value of voltage will be 4 volt. So this 2 and 2 will get cancelled. So simply it will be 16 joules. So 16 joules of energy will be stored in this capacitor. Let us move towards our third question. Our third question is, what is current divider rule? So current divider rule provides a useful relationship for determining the current through individual circuit elements that are connected in parallel. So it is useful for finding the current in the elements which are connected in parallel. So let us see one example for it. Consider this is a 10 ampere source connected in parallel across two resistors of, consider, 4 ohm and 6 ohm. So what will be current through this 4 ohm and this 6 ohm? So by applying current divider rule, you can directly get the answer as the current flowing from I4 will be equals to total current flowing through the circuit into 6 ohm divided by the total resistance, which is 6 plus 4. This comes to be 10 into 6 divided by 10, which is nothing but 6 ampere. And what will be the current flowing from 6 ohm is total current into opposite resistance 4 divided by total resistance. This comes to be 10 into 4 divided by 10, which is 4 ampere. So you can see that we have easily found out the current in the elements which are connected in parallel with this current divider rule. Our next question is, what is voltage divider rule? Now, voltage divider rule provides a useful formula to determine the voltage across any resistor when two or more resistors are connected in series with a voltage source. So consider a circuit. This is 10 volt source connected with two series resistors of 6 ohm and 4 ohm. Now what will be the voltage across these resistors? I am giving this name as V1 and V2. Now the value of V1 will be equal to total source voltage V into the resistor across which we have to find the voltage into 6 divided by the total resistance. It is 6 plus 4. This comes to be 10 into 6 divided by 10. This will be 6 volt, and similarly our voltage 2 will be source voltage into that resistor's value into 4 divided by 6 plus 4, which will be 10 into 4 divided by 10. This comes to be 4 volt. So with this voltage divider rule, you can easily find the voltage across the elements which are connected in series. So you can see that voltage divider rule is used to find out voltage across the elements which are connected in series, and current divider rule is used to find out the voltage across the elements which are connected in parallel. So hope you have understood this both rules. Let us move on towards our next question. Our next question is, what is current? So this is a very basic question, but it will be definitely asked in your exams. So the answer for it is, current can be defined as the motion of charge through a conducting material. The unit of current is ampere, while charge is measured in coulombs. So current is nothing but it is rate of flow of charges through a conducting material, which can be written as I is equal to Q upon T, which is charge flowing through conductor per unit time, and the unit of charge is coulombs and unit of time is second. So unit of current will be coulomb per second, or you can directly say it as ampere. So higher the rate of flow of charges, higher will be the current. Let us see our next question. Our next question is, could you measure voltage in series? Now this is an interesting question. The answer will be no, because voltage is always measured across a circuit element. So if this is a circuit and this is our resistor, then if you want to measure this voltage, then we will of course put the voltmeter in parallel across this element, so that you can get the voltage across it. So we always measure the voltage across any element by connecting a voltmeter parallel across that element and not in series. The voltmeters are designed such that its impedance is very large, so that ideally the current flowing in voltmeter is zero. Now if you try to connect the voltmeter in series, now since you have connected the voltmeter in series and it has a very large impedance or resistance, so this will give you definitely the circuit errors, because in this circuit along with this 2 ohm resistance, one more resistance will get add up, which is nothing but the resistance of this voltmeter. So you should never connect a voltmeter in series with any element, but you should connect across it or in parallel with that element. So this is the correct way. Hope that you have no doubt in this question. So let us move towards our next question. So question number 7 is, what is the efficiency of circuit during maximum power transfer is taking place? So the answer for it is simply 50%. And there is no need of deriving the equations of how this 50% came. Simply giving this answer will be enough for this question. Question number 8 is, define supernode. Now what is a supernode? A supernode exists when an ideal voltage source appears between any two nodes of an electric circuit. The usual way to solve this circuit is to write the KCL equation for both nodes. So let us consider an example. Consider this as node 1 and this is node 2. So voltage across node 1 will be V1 and voltage across node 2 will be V2. Now if you are asked to find the value of V1 and V2, so by easily applying the nodal analysis, you can write the equation as V1 by 2 plus V1 minus V2 by 5 equals 10. This will be your equation number 1, and V2 minus V1 by 5 plus V2 by 1 equals 1. So this will be your equation number 2. And by solving this equation 1 and 2, you can get the value of V1 and V2 easily. But this is not the case of a supernode. Now what is exactly this supernode means? Now the supernode exists when there is an ideal voltage source between any two nodes of the electric circuit. Now I am replacing this 5 ohm resistor with the ideal voltage source. Now since a voltage source is present between these two nodes, this will become our supernode due to the presence of the ideal voltage source between these two nodes. And we can't find the value of V1 and V2 by using these equations. So in this case, there will be two equations. One will be for the node voltages V1 and V2, and the second one will be for this supernode. So this will be, our first equation will be V1 by 2 plus V2 by 2 minus 10 minus 1 equals 0. This will be our first equation, and the second equation will be simply V1 minus 1 minus V2. This will be V1 minus V2 equals 1. So this will be our second equation. And by solving this both equation, you will easily get the value of V1 and V2. Our question number 9 is define Ohm's law for AC current. So everything else would remain the same, only the resistance will be replaced with impedance, which is defined as the opposition to the flow of AC. So in case of DC circuits, Ohm's law is simply given as V equals IR, where V is the voltage across circuit, I is the current flowing through it, and R is the resistance of the circuit. Now in case of AC circuits, the law remains the same, only the thing is that the resistance will get replaced with the value of impedance, where impedance is nothing but resistance plus J into reactance of that circuit. If the circuit is inductive in nature, then the impedance will be R plus Jx, and if the circuit is capacitive in nature, then impedance will be R minus Jx. So you just need to put the value of Z instead of R, and that will become your Ohm's law for alternating current. Our question number 10 is, what do we mean by dependent and independent voltage sources? Now, in general, there are two main types of DC sources. The first is the independent voltage or current source, and second is dependent voltage and current source. An independent source produces its own voltage and current through some chemical reaction and does not depend on any other voltage source or current variable in the circuit, while the output of dependent source on other hand is subject to certain parameter, voltage or current change in a circuit element. So what does this mean? Consider a circuit. This is 10 volt, 2 volt. Now you can see that in this circuit there is a voltage source and a current source, but this voltage source is an independent voltage source since it does not depend upon any of the circuit element. It produces its own energy. But if you look at this element, this is our dependent source because the value of this current source depends upon the value of I flowing through this 2 ohm resistance. So if the value of I is going to change, then definitely the value of this current source will also change. So These are our dependent source and these are our independent source. So hope that you have understood this. Question number 11 is, what is the function of the capacitor? Now, a capacitor, also known as a condenser, is a passive two-terminal electrical component used to store energy electrostatically in an electric field. So it is a two-terminal electrical component and it is passive in nature. Means it only absorbs the energy. It does not create the energy on its own, and it is used to store the energy electrostatically in the form of electrical field. The forms of practical capacitors vary widely, but all contain at least two electrical conductors that are plates separated by an dielectric medium. So the capacitor consists of at least two conducting plates. This is plate 1 and this is plate 2, and this is separated by a medium that is known as dielectric medium. And this is terminal number 1 and this is terminal number 2. Question number 12 is, could you measure current in the parallel? So the answer will be no, because current is always measured through a circuit element. That means if you have to measure a current in a circuit or across an element, then you have to connect the ammeter in series with that element. For example, this is a voltage source of 20 volt and this is a resistance of 5 ohms. Now you have to measure the current flowing through this 5 ohm resistor. Then what you have to do is connect the ammeter in series with the resistance, which will show you the current flowing through it. Now what happens is that the ammeters are designed such that the resistance of ammeter is nearly equal to 0, so that whatever the current is flowing through the 5 ohm resistance will exactly flow from it and it will minimize the errors. Now what will happen if we connect the ammeter in parallel with this 5 ohm resistor to measure the current across it? I am connecting it in parallel with 5 ohm resistor. Now in this condition, what will happen is that the resistance of ammeter is negligible or considerably 0, but the resistance of this resistor is 5 ohm. So what will happen is that all the current will flow from the ammeter, which will result in a short circuit, and this 5 ohm resistor will be isolated from this circuit. Since current from this will be 0, so our circuit will look like this, which means that the 5 ohm resistor is eliminated from this circuit, and this is a wrong procedure. So for measuring the current, the ammeter should be always connected in series with that element. Question number 13 is, state and define Ohm's law. It is the most fundamental law used in circuit analysis. It provides a simple formula describing the voltage-current relationship in a conducting material. Now the statement for the Ohm's law is, the voltage or potential difference across a conducting material is directly proportional to the current flowing through the material. Which means that across any conducting material, the voltage is directly proportional to current flowing through that conductor. And to remove this proportionality constant, we introduce the term resistance. So it becomes V equals IR, where The constant of proportionality R is called as resistance and which is measured in ohms. Many times what happens is that whenever a question is asked that define Ohm's law, many students generally give the answer as simply by saying V is equal to IR, and this disappoints the examiner. What he was expecting that you should say this statement of Ohm's law, and after that you can give the equation that V is equal to IR. Our question number 14 is that what is voltage or potential difference? So voltage or potential difference between 2 points in an electric circuit will be 1 volt if 1 joule of energy is expended in transferring 1 coulomb of charge between those 2 points. It is generally represented by the symbol of V and it is measured in volts, which states that the potential difference between these 2 points AB will be 1 volt if 1 joule of energy is required to transfer 1 coulomb of charge from point A to B. Question number 15 is, what does the term voltage regulation means? So, voltage regulation is an important measure of the quality of a source. It is used to measure the variation in terminal voltage between no load and full load. Consider a circuit. This is 300 volt and it is given directly to a DC motor. Now consider that this is running at, initially it is running at no load and the voltage across it appears to be around 290 volts. So at no load the voltage is 290 volts. Now consider the motor is running at full load. So this voltage will drop and the full load voltage will be, assume that it will be 250 volt. Now what does voltage regulation means? It is variation in the terminal voltage. Since it was firstly 290 volt, it has dropped down to 250 volt. So this change in voltage across the terminals of motor is known as voltage regulation. And formula for voltage regulation is voltage at no load minus voltage at full load divided by voltage at no load. So this will come to be 290 minus 250 divided by 290. So this comes to be 0.137, or you can say as 13.7%. Now ideally we expect that the value of voltage regulation should be as low as possible. The low the value of voltage regulation, the higher will be the efficiency of that system. Question number 16 is, state and define Norton's theorem. The Norton's equivalent circuit is a practical current source. This can be formed stated as any two terminals linear circuit of a resistor and sources can be replaced by a single current source in parallel with a resistor. And to determine Norton's equivalent circuit, Norton's current IN and Norton's resistance Rn are required to be found, and the steps to find these are: remove the load resistance and then replace it by short circuit current. Then find the Norton's resistance across the load terminals with all sources replaced by their internal resistance. Consider a circuit like this. And you are asked to find the Norton's equivalent circuit across the 1 ohm resistor. Now, what will be your first step? Your first step is to remove the load resistance RL, means you have to remove that load resistance. Secondly, replace the load resistance by a short circuit current. So I am replacing that resistor with a short circuit, and this current will be IN, that is Norton's current or short circuit current. Now we will get the value of IN. So we have found the value of IN or short circuit current, ISC. Now the second step will be to find the Norton's resistance across the load terminals. We have to find the Norton's resistance across this terminal A and B, and we have to replace the sources by its internal resistance. Now if it is a voltage source, then we have to replace it by a short circuit, and if it was a current source, then we have to replace it by an open circuit. So the resistance across AB will be simply 10 parallel with 10, that will be equals to 5 ohm. So we have got the Norton's resistance as 5 ohm. Now we will draw the Norton's equivalent circuit across the load terminals. Now this will be our current source, Norton's current, in parallel with equivalent Norton resistance and the load resistance of 1 ohm. Now the current through it was, we have found the value of IN, and we have also found the value of RN. Now by applying node or mesh analysis, we can easily find the current going through the load resistance, and in this way we can solve this circuit by Norton's theorem. Question number 17 is, what does the term power factor shows? Now the term cos phi is also called as power factor, and it is an important parameter in determining the amount of actual power dissipated in the load. In practice, power factor is used to specify the characteristics of load. Now what is power factor? Power factor is nothing but cosine of angle between the voltage and current. So power factor will be cosine of angle between the voltage and current. Now for a purely resistive load, the angle will be 0 degree, and hence the power factor will be unity. So if there is a resistive load, then the voltage and current will be in same phase. That means that angle between them is 0, and cos 0 is equal to 1. That means as unity power factor. This is in the case of resistive load. Then for a capacitive type load, current leads voltage, and hence it is leading power factor. Now what happens in capacitive type of load? The current leads the voltage, and this will be the angle theta between them. Then power factor will be cos of that angle, and this will come to be a leading power factor, since current is leading the voltage. And third is, for inductive type of load, current lags voltage, hence it comes to be lagging power factor. So in inductive load, the current lags voltage. So power factor will be lagging. And what are inductive types of load? Inductive loads are generally the induction machines, and normally 90% of the load is inductive. In industries, higher the power factor draws less amount of current, means higher the value of power factor, it will draw the less amount of current, which will directly reduce the I square or I square R or copper losses in the transmission line. So our aim is to keep the highest power factor as possible, means the power factor should be equal to 1 or unity to minimize the losses, since cos 0 equals to 1. And if the angle between the voltage and current is 90 degrees, which we won't want, then in that case cos of 90 will be 0. That means the power factor for that circuit will be 0, which we never want. Question number 18 is, what is the energy stored in the magnetic field of inductor? Now the formula for energy stored in a magnetic field of inductor is given as E equals half Li square, where energy in inductor is stored in the form of magnetic field, while energy in capacitor is stored in the form of electric field. So you should remember this, that energy in inductor is stored in the form of magnetic field, while energy in capacitor is stored in the form of electric field. Now consider an inductor, let it be of 2 Henry, and the current flowing through it is 4 ampere. Now the energy stored will be given as half into L, means value of inductor, into I square, that is current flowing through it. So it will be half into 2 Henry into 4 ampere square. So this 2 will get cancelled, and this will be simply 16 joules of energy. And the unit of inductor is Henry. Question number 19 is, what is the function of capacitor in electrical circuits? So now previously we have seen that what does a capacitor means. So a capacitor is a passive circuit element that has the capacity to store charge in the form of electric field, and it is widely used in electrical circuits in the form of filters. So what is the main function or purpose of capacitor is, it is used as a filter in electrical circuits. Has capacitor blocks or does not allow the flow of DC through it and allows the flow of AC through it. Now, for example, one application is in rectifiers. Suppose this is the circuit of rectifier and this is the output. Now in that output a capacitor will be placed, so that what is the purpose of rectifier? It converts AC into DC, but the output will not contain pure DC, it will contain AC. So what this capacitor does, it It filters the AC component and giving us pure DC supply. So the main purpose of capacitor is to act as a filter. Question number 20 is, what does the term super mesh means? In previous question, we have discussed the term supernode. In this question, we will see what does super mesh means. A super mesh exists when an ideal current source appears between two meshes of an electrical circuit. Consider a circuit. Now you can easily find the circuit parameters by finding the current I1 in loop 1 or mesh 1 and current I2 in mesh 2. Now this is not the circuit for super mesh, and we can easily solve this circuit by writing these two equations for the two loops. Now what does super mesh means? Now I am replacing that 1 ohm resistor with an current source. Now the mesh 1 and mesh 2 are connected by a current source between them, means an current source appears between the two mesh. Now this circuit we cannot solve by our conventional method, that is writing equations for these two loops, but we have to do, or it is the case of a super mesh, because a current source appears between the two meshes of an electrical circuit. Question number 21 is, what is resonant frequency? The frequency at which circuit is purely resistive. The resonant frequency is the frequency at which the circuit becomes purely resistive, which means that the power factor of that circuit will be unity, because since the circuit is resistive, the voltage and current will be in the same phase, which means that the angle difference between them will be 0 and cos 0 is 1. That means that power factor is unity. Also at resonance, the impedance of circuit is minimum in case of series RLC circuit and maximum in case of parallel RLC circuit. Next question is, how many types of circuit loads are there in a common electrical circuit? So a load generally refers to a component or a piece of equipment connected to the output of an electric circuit. In its fundamental form, the load is represented by any one or combination of the following. There are three types of circuit loads. First is the resistive load, which is due to the presence of resistor. Then due to the presence of inductor, it will be inductive load, and due to presence of capacitor, it will be capacitive load. A load can either be resistive, inductive or capacitive in nature, or it can be blend of them, means combination of all three. For example, a light bulb is purely resistive load, whereas a transformer is both inductive and resistive. A circuit load can also be referred to as a sinks since it dissipates energy. Means a circuit load always absorbs the energy, therefore it can be referred as sink, while the voltage or current supply can be termed as source, since the voltage and current supply delivers while the circuit load absorbs the power. So the types of circuit load are resistive, inductive and capacitive. Question number 23 is differentiate between real and apparent power. The product of voltage and current yields the apparent power, which is measured in volt amperes. kW, which is also written as kilowatt, is the real power that is actually converted to the useful work, while kVAR is also termed as kilovolt reactive. This power is used for magnetic field excitation and flows back and forth between the source and load. Let us see the power triangle. In power triangle, this side is apparent power denoted by S given as V into I. This side is real power or active power and it is denoted by P and its formula is VI cos phi and its unit is kilowatt, and the base side is known as reactive power denoted by Q. Its formula is VI sin phi and its unit is kilovolt ampere reactive. So the active power is that power which is actually converted to the useful work, and reactive power is just used for the magnetic field excitation, and the apparent power is sum of active power plus reactive power, and its magnitude is apparent power will be P square plus Q square. You can consider an example of a sugarcane juice in a glass. In that case, what happens is the level of the juice is considered up to this level, and above that will be the foam due to that juice. Now what happens is that we pay for the whole glass, that will become our apparent power, and what we actually drink is this part which becomes our active power, and this part which is of no use will be termed as reactive power. But even if it is of no use, then also we have to pay for this part also. Without that we can't get the juice. Or consider another example of fan. In fan, it consumes the both active and reactive power. The reactive power is used for the magnetic excitation, and real power is consumed by the fan to convert into mechanical motion. So the real power is that power which is actually converted into useful work, and reactive power is generally used for magnetic field excitation, and apparent power is both combination of reactive and active power. Next question is, what is maximum power transfer theorem? The maximum power transfer theorem states that the power delivered to the load is maximum when the load resistance RL is equal to internal or source resistance RS of the DC power supply. Consider this as a DC power supply. This is the internal resistance or source resistance denoted by RS, and this is our load resistance RL. Now the power across RL can be given as I square into RL, and this power will be maximum when our load resistance is equal to source resistance. When these resistance are equal, then the current will be maximum across the circuit and the power across the load resistance will also be the maximum. Therefore, the maximum power transfer theorem states that the power delivered to the load is maximum when the load resistance is equal to the source resistance. And remember, during this transferring of power, the efficiency of circuit is only 50%. Question number 25 is a very simple question that lists examples of voltage source. So the common examples of voltage source are a battery and an generator. Question number 26 is an important question. It is, what is meant by open circuit? So an open circuit is an incomplete circuit in which there is no flow of current. Remember these words, there will be no flow of current. Consider a circuit. This is a current source, this is a resistor, and also this is a resistor. Now what I am doing is replacing this resistor, or I am removing this resistor. So this will be now what happens is that since we have removed the resistor and open circuit is been formed in the circuit, so that the current will not flow from this point to this point, so the current in the circuit will remain zero since the circuit is not completed. But you can determine the voltage across the open circuit. For example, instead of current source, this was a voltage source of 10 volt, then that same voltage can be appeared across this terminal 10 volt. So you can measure the voltage across open circuit terminals, but current will always be zero. Question number 27 is, what is meant by short circuit? This is also an important question. In short circuit, the maximum amount of current is flown through the circuit. For example, this is 100 volt, this is one resistor, and this is another resistor. This is R1 and R2. Now I am replacing the circuit or the resistor R2 by a short circuit. So it will be, or replacing that resistor simply with a wire. Now this forms the short circuit and the current flowing through it will be ISC, that is short circuit current. Now since current always follows the minimum resistance path, since the resistance of short circuit is minimum compared to the R1 resistance, all the current will flow through short circuit and current in R will be zero, which means that maximum current will flow in the circuit, since ISC can be given as our source voltage, that is 100 volt, and the resistance of this short circuit, which is almost negligible. You can even consider it as zero. Ideally, it should be 0. So short circuit current will be infinite ampere. That only it is given that in short circuit maximum amount of current is flown through the circuit. Next question is, what is the nature of voltages in each component of series RLC circuit? So in series RLC circuit, the voltage in inductor leads while the voltage in capacitor lags, and in resistor it is in phase with current. Consider a RLC series circuit. RLC, and this is the voltage applied across it. I am drawing the phasor diagram for it. Consider this is the current flowing through the circuit. Then the voltage across resistor will be in phase with the current, and voltage across inductor will lead the current by 90 degree, and the voltage across capacitor will lag the current by 90 degree. Ideally it should be 90 degree and not more than that. It can also be less than 90 degree. Next question is, what is the nature of current in each component of parallel RLC circuit? In parallel RLC circuit, the current in inductor lags, the current in capacitor leads, and in resistor it is in phase with voltage. Consider an parallel RLC circuit. This is our supply current I, this is current of resistor, this is current of capacitor, and this is current of inductor. Now voltage will remain the same in all three components. The current across the resistor will be in phase with that voltage, and current across the capacitor will lead the voltage by 90 degree ideally, and similarly the current across the inductor will lag the voltage by 90 degree. And in previous question we have seen that in series RLC circuit, so you can conclude that in series RLC and parallel RLC, first is voltage of resistor remains in same phase. Then voltage across inductor leads and voltage across capacitor lags. Now in case of parallel RLC circuit, the current in resistor remains in phase with voltage source. The current in inductor lags and current in capacitor leads. Our last question is, what is the relation between line and phase parameters in star and delta connection? So this is the most important and repeatedly asked question in each Viva. Let us see first for delta connection. This will be our line voltage and this will be phase voltage. Similarly, this will be the line current and current flowing in this will be our phase current. So the two important relationships are First is the line voltage is equal to phase voltage in delta connection, and the line current is equal to root 3 times phase current. So these are the two important relationships between the line and phase voltage and current parameters. Now let us see for star connection. This will be the line voltage, and across this will be phase voltage. This will be line current and this will be phase current. So you can see that line current or phase current are similar. So for star connection, first is line current is equal to phase current, and secondly the line voltage is equal to root 3 times phase voltage. So this will be the surely asked question, so you should not miss this question. So here we have finished all our 30 questions. I hope that you have understood all the questions and just learn these 30 questions, and I am sure that you will do well in your Viva exams. Do not forget to subscribe our channel for such upcoming videos. Till then, goodbye.